What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Carolina Barbecue Festival's 5th anniversary is almost here. Get your tickets today for the Queen City's biggest barbecue party, April 17th and 18th, Victoria Yards in Uptown Charlotte. 30 pitmasters are celebrating Carolina barbecue traditions, supporting Operation Barbecue Relief, and serving you the very best barbecue. The fun starts Friday night with the kickoff and a salute to all things Charlotte barbecue. Then we all get together for Barbecue Saturday and tasting plates from 25 pitmaster stations. Tickets are going fast, especially VIP early entry. Get yours today, CarolinaBBQFest.org. Then join us April 17th and 18th for the Carolina Barbecue Festival. And of course, the driving force behind the Carolina Barbecue Festival is the Barbecue for a Cause mission. It's sending proceeds to Operation Barbecue Relief as it continues feeding communities after disaster and enriching heroes' lives every day. Our guest today is Stan Hayes. He's the Operation Barbecue Relief CEO and co-founder. Stan, welcome back to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
Jigger, thank you very much for having me on again.
Yeah, we're very excited to talk to you about some of the stuff you guys get going on. But I want to know, first of all, Stan, picture in your mind the perfect barbecue plate and tell me what's on that.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, it's going to be a hodgepodge for sure. But, one of the best pork sandwiches I've ever had, made by Sam Jones for me years ago. I mean, it was like one of those, moments of life, right? You're like, holy cow. It would start with that sandwich, that whole hog sandwich that he gave me. I'd have to throw in some Kansas City burnt ends into the mix with that, because I mean, I've tried burnt ends in many different places. It's just not the same as Kansas City. I'd travel down to Texas and grab some beef ribs because they're just amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then probably little partial to some Memphis style ribs. So I mean, like it's truly taking the basically the country, all those main barbecue areas of the country, and I'm not trying to leave out other areas because there's many more than just what I mentioned, but that would be on the plate, and then we could talk for a long time if we got into sides, because that's just, somebody was talking about it the other day and they're like, barbecue at many of these restaurants anymore is so damn good, but it's the sides that really make the difference.
Yeah. That's a differentiator that really sets you apart. Okay, so we had you on the show back in 2024, and we've been so fortunate to talk a few times with one of your North Carolina All-Stars, our friend Scott Jarrett. But for people who don't know Operation Barbecue Relief and what you do, maybe take a moment to introduce the organization.
Sure. Well, this is going to be our 15th year as an organization. We started in 2011 after the Joplin tornado. Bunch of competition barbecue guys, enthusiasts, barbecue judges that got together and said, who better than us to go set up in a parking lot, with minimal needs and just feed a community after, the worst day of most of their lives. Right. And feed them something good, nourishing, like good hot barbecue. That was the beginning, now we're going to be 15 years into this in May. And we've provided over 13 million meals across the United States, done 2 international deployments, one to the Bahamas in 2019, and this last year going to Jamaica after the hurricane there, and providing meals down into Jamaica. So, we're out there providing in somebody's worst time, something comforting for them. One of the most humbling things is to be thanked by somebody that's lost almost everything for something as simple as a pulled pork sandwich, and know how much it truly meant to them. But as much as we've done there, it's really what we do outside of disaster that is grabbing a lot of people's attention. We've had our Always Serving project since 2019, which, we do events in communities around the country. Last year we did 104 events across the United States that focused on veterans, first responders, active military, and their families, and giving back, whether that's International Firefighters Day. Last year I think it was 28 different cities. I can't remember how many different states were involved there, and certainly don't remember how many hundred of firehouses were done. But it's going to be even bigger this year. But doing things like that, a cause to give back in a time, that's what our volunteers just really gravitate to when they're not, in the middle of a disaster. And then, in 2023, we took it up a notch and we opened up our camp on Lake of the Ozarks in central Missouri, which, there we focus on bringing in first responders, veterans, active military, their families and families of the fallen to use culinary therapy and outdoor adventure to really bring them together, utilizing culinary therapy in a way to help self-soothe, give them life skills as well, but really give them an opportunity in a way that they can, bond with others. One of the big things is when, somebody leaves the military or even a first responder, they sort of feel like they lose part of their community. Mm-hmm. This is a way to give back and give them community. We also do that everywhere we go in volunteering, and we talk about that with people that are looking for opportunities to give back is, when you volunteer with us, you're finding a new community, you're finding that new group, but it's also a purpose that you're able to give back now in a way that may be very similar to the way you were giving previously in serving your country or serving your community.
Yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpack there. And I want to kind of go back to a couple of things you touched on, because we're going to talk more about Camp OBR here in just a bit. But first, let's talk about Jamaica and the Bahamas. And you've had a couple of different international trips. First of all, what motivates the desire to go outside of our nation's borders, even if it's, just to the Caribbean a little bit?
Really the requests is being asked, more than anything. We want to help communities far and wide as much as we can. But we don't have finite resources to be able to do that. We don't have, celebrities that are out there talking about us or things like that. So we have to be very, cautious of how we spend, donor dollars. But in this case, we were actually contacted by people in Jamaica, talked with the governmental officials, and we had some people from our team on the ground, but we didn't cook a meal in Jamaica. In fact, we didn't cook any meals at all. What we did is we provided shelf-stable meals, because the biggest fear in the country was, food-borne illness and sickness, because people would try to take those meals across the country to other cities. And what, might have been an hour and a half drive, in some places was taking 6 hours. And their concern of food safety, which was our concern as well, was how can we do this and be safe? And they basically gave us a list of food that's part of, the diet in Jamaica. And we really focused on that. So we went out there and we were using, our buying power and our partners to plantain chips, to sardines, to canned fish and things like that is pretty much a staple in their diet these days. So we were able to provide that, and over 200,000 meals were packaged up. We were doing boxes that were giving an average family of 4, 3 meals a day for 4 days in these boxes that were going. And so we worked with many different partners that had planes, were shipping stuff over, barges going to, get those meals down there. And, I think just as last month, I saw some pictures of some of those shelf-stable meals still getting out into areas that still don't have resources. Wow. And I mean, you think about that, that's heart-wrenching to think, you've gone over 4 months without, power, without the stability of what we may take for granted here in the United States. And so that's the way we were able to be able to give back, keep people safe, and realistically, it was probably more expensive than going and cooking fresh meals, but it was, we activated a lot of people in the Tampa facility we used, and got a lot of engagement, stateside, of people that wanted to help.
Yeah, and that's what it always takes, those people that are wanting to help. But there's something else that's kind of behind that too that maybe you can explain a little bit. I know showing up at a disaster scene with the smokers and everything requires a certain level of logistics. But what you're talking about in an international mission, that's got to be a little bit more of a different challenge. How do you manage that adjustment from showing up on scene to literally an international support project?
Yeah. Well, luckily, we're working with the same people that we do here. A lot of our partners like Amazon, and we have a couple other nonprofits that move equipment and move products around the country. They also do it internationally, and so working with them. The logistics was a little bit tougher because it was outside the United States. But again, we had this direct connect right into the government, where we were working with, the Minister of Health, and we were working with all of these groups, to where we were not being taxed. Our food came in, it was being received by another nonprofit on the ground who would take that and then distribute it out to other groups and churches throughout the island, trying to make sure that people were fed.
Very cool. And I've had the good fortune to see that mission happen right here in Hickory. It's a little bit different scenario with Scott and the Thanksgiving meals that are going on here, but definitely people that have a need. And it's a nice way to warm up a home. And again, Scott serving those here through Hickory Soup Kitchen right around Thanksgiving. I see y'all do a similar operation in Tennessee. Where does this fit into what y'all are doing? It's a little bit outside the always serving, because it's not always the first responders and sort.
It isn't always the first responders and such, but in our nation, when we have a problem where somewhere between, as low as 25 and as high as 55% of the homeless population, can be connected as a veteran out there, we have a problem. And if we have that big of a problem, then we put it as part of the Always Serving project around the holidays, because we think everybody deserves the dignity of a hot meal and everything during those times, from that Thanksgiving to Christmas. And you'll find that we do, leading up to Thanksgiving, we do these, and then we'll be doing them around the country, in these different communities, and being able to give back in that way. So yeah, it's a little different, but it's really started with, you look at the number of homeless veterans that are out there. And then it just really kicked up even more during COVID, when, people became, they might've had a job, but, they were struggling to make, hey, am I paying the house payment, or am I going to feed my family? We have a lot of people that are in that food insecure area right now. So it's just our way of doing our part to help out.
Any new projects on the board?
Yeah, we do have some new projects that we're working on. We got a grant earlier this year to do some education in the culinary space, specifically barbecue. So we'll be doing a barbecue boot camp, bringing in a group. They might be veterans, they might be first responders that want to get into basically the culinary space. And so we're working with some of the barbecue restaurants and groups out there to also help with placement after going through there's online classes they have to take. There's different certifications, serve safe, and everything along the way. And that's going to culminate with then a 7-day, in-house cooking, hands-on approach with that. And so, this new project is something that's been in the works for years, of trying to figure out what's another way that we can, use purpose, right? How can we give purpose to those veterans, those first responders that are looking for what comes next? Is it, hey, I want to open a food truck, but I don't really know how. I want to get into the barbecue world. I want to get into the kitchen, and these give we've already had a couple of local places in Tampa that have heard what we're doing, and they're like, hey, have any of your people that are interested come and apply with us, and they're not even barbecue related, both of those kitchens.
Yeah, very cool idea for the future. I know Blue Suede Barbecue is a veteran who's left military service and started up his own food truck down east in North Carolina. So there's examples about that all across the country, I'm sure. And of course, we're talking with Stan Hayes, the co-founder and CEO of Operation Barbecue Relief. Proceeds from this year's Carolina Barbecue Festival support Operation Barbecue Relief, as it's done for the past few years. And you can help join that effort, that Barbecue for a Cause effort, too, when you visit carolinabqfest.org. Buy your tickets for the Carolina Barbecue Festival, April 17th and 18th. It's happening at Victoria Yards in Uptown Charlotte. The fun starts with the kickoff on Friday, and this year it's a spotlight on Charlotte barbecue with 5 pitmasters bringing their barbecue best. April 18th is Barbecue Saturday with more than 25 pitmasters bringing their smokers into Uptown Charlotte and serving samples of the best barbecue bites you'll find in the Carolinas. Just get your tickets today at carolinabbbqfest.org. Use promo code Low and Slow and you'll get a discount. And of course, the pitmasters coming to Barbecue Saturday are the gang from Operation Barbecue Relief. And anytime they pull up with those industrial sized smokers and that army of red shirts like Stan's got on today, they're pretty hard to miss. The things that Operation Barbecue Relief's doing on Lake of the Ozarks, as Stan has already said, may be a little bit harder to find if you don't know where to look. So Stan, tell us a little bit about Camp OBR and how that project has continued to evolve really over the past 2 years since we talked to you last.
Yeah. So, as we continue to grow, we're really looking at how do we provide, more. And the camp was a way to be able to do some similar to what we were doing with the Always Serving project, maybe in a parking lot somewhere and giving educational, and life skills, but it was taking it to another level. It was focusing on those that were suffering from physical or emotional injury that they sustained, or their family sustained from their service to our country, to our community. And, we use culinary therapy, which is just a really fancy way of saying, hey, we're teaching you how to cook, low and slow and hot and fast, and giving you life skills there. But what they've found with culinary therapy, it's not much different than art or music therapy. I mean, if you think about it, reading a recipe card is not much different than sitting there reading a score of music and playing there, or, when you're painting or doing something with your hands, like throwing clay, it's not much different than trying to figure out what your flavor profile is going to be. Mm-hmm. It's that creative part of your brain that you're really working on. And that it's been shown that that's also one of the ways that helps soothe you, right? Mm-hmm. It helps, relax you. And I know so many people that love to cook. And when you tell them that, they're like, man, that makes all the sense in the world. I find myself calming. I find myself, relieving stress at the end of the day when I'm cooking dinner and things like that. And that's why. But it's really the outdoor adventure on top of that, and bringing people that are similar, but don't know that they're, don't realize how similar they are together, to be able to bond, to be able to work through a lot of the trauma that they may have, and leaving with lifelong friends after, 5 days.
I visited the website, operationbbqrelief.org, and there's a drop down for Camp OBR. Y'all do a nice job on your website, by the way. Beautiful looking scenes there all the way across. One thing that caught my eye, though, was the dog tag ceremony. Tell our audience a little bit about what that is.
That is probably one of the toughest and most, humbling pieces of the camp, is to get to witness, we have a dog tag machine. Obviously, we're not asking them to bring a dog tag of their loved one lost. We have a dog tag machine that they can make a dog tag and say whatever they want to say about that loved one. And we have a gazebo there that was built by the prior owners of the property, who lost their youngest daughter in a car accident. And in that car accident, from that, they built this gazebo in memory of her. And as we were, looking at what things we would do, this idea of the dog tag ceremony came up, and I'm like, this is where it needs to be. It's got one of the best views on the property. You see the lake, you see everything around you. But, it was already memorializing, someone who was lost from the prior owners. And it was our way of paying a little homage to them, but also giving a place that we could hang these. And, we do the full ceremony where they go in, they hang it, they come out. We have the bell to ring. They can then say their name and, and a little bit about them. And again, it's a little gut wrenching. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. There's plenty of tears that are shed. They're tears of joy, but they're tears of moving on a little bit too during that. And so there's a lot of growth that happens.
It's a nice way to provide closure for some people in really a difficult scenario. Let's lift it up a little bit here, Stan, before we close. Carolina Barbecue Festival. How did you get connected with Sweet Lou and this bunch of barbecue banana heads?
Well, we got connected before Lou and I ever really met, right? I mean, he knew of us and everything. And then, Lou and I met, what was it, 23 or something like that at Windy City Smokeout. He came, and because I hadn't been there, to Carolina Barbecue Fest yet, even though we had been part of it and done some things with it. And, I got to meet him, and then, a couple months later, he's out in Missouri and came to the camp and to see the camp and check it out because his stepson was graduating from Fort Leonard Wood and was serving, and it just sort of it all seemed to click. The great work that he's doing and trying to put together this festival and grow this festival the way he is. And all the pitmasters, so many of them who support us and have for over the years. It's just been a great, way to work together. The Carolinas have been some of the most engaged volunteers that we have, and people of giving. That it just all made sense, and we just all clicked together. So we're so honored to be part of this, really. Seeing, the guys that come out and gals that really just give their heart to their craft.
Yeah, and we got to see you there last year. On Friday night was a little bit more relaxed, chilled atmosphere. Saturday, you're out there slinging it, working the grill hard, working all your people hard who were really working hard. It was a cool thing to see. What do you enjoy about the festival now that you've been and had that experience?
Every one of these festivals I go to, it's really about the people that I meet, the people, getting to meet so many new people, but also getting to see so many friends that I may only see a couple times a year, because it's barbecue family. In that parking lot, I've got this new extended, barbecue family over the years there in the Carolinas that, might have known each other or known of each other, but really didn't, share stories or share that beer or something like that, like we get to do now. And so we've got to meet a lot of community people that have come back year after year. And again, that's why, it's so important that we just get out there and we tell our story, but, we try to engage people through our barbecue at these events.
Have you decided what you're going to be bringing to this event? It's just a few weeks away.
We've been talking about it. I always leave it up to Lou to tell me what's missing, right?
Uh-huh.
Last year we did chicken tacos,
mm-hmm.
and that was because we were teamed up with Texas Pete. I think we're doing something with Texas Pete again this year. I think it's going to be a slider. We've been talking about doing something like a beef slider,
mm-hmm.
and using some Texas Pete sauce in there. To give it a little bit of a kick, but we'll see. I think that's in the final stages right now of what we're going to be doing. But that's what we've been talking about.
Stay tuned to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Find us online. We'll have all the details as that menu gets finalized. When you go to the festival stand, do you get to eat, or is it all work?
I do get to eat some. I have my friends that I go behind the scenes. I'll grab something, but some of those lines are so long, and I feel bad, going behind the scenes to Garen to go get a beef slider or something, beef rib slider when he's got 100 people in line. So I sort of make my way around a little bit, but not as much as I'd like to.
Well, just for everybody out there, you can beat those lines with those VIP early entry tickets. Now, Stan, you've been very generous with your time today. We've talked a lot about Operation Barbecue Relief, some of the great things y'all are doing. Before we wrap it up, just want to hand you the microphone and talk about maybe something that's important to you, whether we've covered it or not.
Yeah, well, I think, I tell everybody there's three things that everybody can do one of, And what I would ask is, people to think about that as they're listening to the show. The first thing is register to volunteer. If you ever thought about, volunteering or wanting to do something, don't wait till a disaster happens to register, because we have great opportunities for learning and finding out more about how to volunteer and what you do when you volunteer. When you register in advance, there's those opportunities. There's going to be a training probably coming. I'm hearing that we're probably going to have one, late spring towards the Wilmington area, it looks like this year, which is going to be an opportunity to engage, old volunteers from prior deployments that were in the area, but also to bring in new people. If you just don't have the time or wherewithal to volunteer, consider making a donation to OBR. Every little bit helps, and we can't do it without our volunteers, and we can't do it without those that give. But if again that's something that you're just not in a place to be able to do, use your social media platform and share this podcast so to some of your friends and your family. So maybe they can come out to the Carolina Barbecue Fest and meet us. Maybe they want to volunteer. Maybe they want to donate. But by doing one of those three things or doing all three of those things, makes a great impact for us.
And that, my friends, is the final word from Stan Hayes, co-founder and CEO of Operation Barbecue Relief. To find out more about the organization, to donate, or to volunteer, visit online, operationbbqrelief.com. Stan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Chigger. I appreciate it. It's been great as always. The time has flown by.
You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, sponsored by the Carolina Barbecue Festival, April 17th and 18th in Charlotte's Victoria Yards in Uptown Charlotte. Reserve your tickets for the Carolina Barbecue Festival, carolinabbqfest.org. Be sure and use promo code Low and Slow for your discount. To our audience, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. If you like what you hear, share our podcast with your food-loving friends, and please give us a 5-star rating on your favorite stream. For more interviews with pit masters and chefs from the Carolina Barbecue Festival and the Barbecue Brunch, and there's another interview with Stan Hayes, just visit lowslowbbqshow.com. You'll find our blog there with another detail about Operation Barbecue Relief, some of the great things they've done and the backstory there. Our website also has event details, festival announcements, and all that good stuff. You can get it when you sign up for our weekly newsletter. We deliver the latest Carolina barbecue news, food truck schedules, events, all that to your email inbox. Just sign up for the newsletter at lowslowbbqshow.com. The Low and Slow Barbecue Show is proud to be part of the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Visit the Mesh.tv for other great podcasts produced by our producer today, Andrew Moose. We couldn't do our weekly podcast without him. We couldn't do it without our audience either. So for the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, I'm Chigger Willard reminding you that for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.